What up? This is Terrence with Coco Creative. Thank you for checking out our podcast episode, Impact Over Transaction. This is a project we've been talking about for a long time, but now we're just putting it into action. And so here we go. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to scale your minority business and what that looks like. And really, I think I get a lot of questions around a few things. One is, how do you build your team? Two is, how did you get them contracts? Whether they're talking about a large corporation or some kind of a relationship we have. And people always ask about the team as well. Definitely, they ask specifically about Tia. We'll get to that later. But because it's so hard to find good help that is effective. But yeah, we're gonna dive into some things. First, I'll give a little background about me and the business. I started off doing production stuff as a very young man in church, and my community helped lift me up. A few years later, I got my first professional job, thanks to my friend, Chris Knight recommended me for a position that had skill sets that I was already strong in. I got my first big job right out of high school and college working for a big teen university. So doing video production stuff in athletics. And so I mentioned those things because I had already been cultivating my skill set, or it had already been cultivated early on in life. And I think anytime you're trying to get into business, you may start off with a skill you have or a hobby or a subject that you love, but eventually you got to figure out a way to monetize that thing. This podcast will be revolving around, business, specifically how to scale your business. And a lot of people have gifts, but they are trying to figure out how to monetize that gift. And you have to remember, on the other side of the situation, the other side of a hobby is a way for you to help scale a service that you're offering in exchange for money. So I would say the first thing is make sure you understand the value proposition that you bring to the table. And you want to be in a position where you can develop that particular skill set. So sometimes it's good to work for a corporation for a while until you have some built up muscle memory before you start diving out there to do stuff on your own. Because you can have protection in doing a skill set for an organization that has parameters around professional development. They have parameters around, seeing that you grow as a professional outside of your skill set, but also as a person in the workforce. And those type of things are really, really good, especially when you are starting off in this journey called life and trying to figure out your way. So I started professionally early, and later on I started working for someone else using my same skill set. And I think that is key. You have to be able to cultivate and grow in the skill set that you have. And it's good to do that before you start charging other folks money, because you do them wrong, they might come after you. You do wrong in yourself in the workplace, they might slap you on the wrist. They will probably teach you and work with you. But think about it like you're exchanging your time for the opportunity to grow on someone else's dime. I think that's key. The other part is people want to make a lot of money in business, but it's hard. You can make a lot of money, but you can also, it will also cost you a lot to make that money as well. So just remember there are different wages for different stages of your professional life. And those wages can be what someone pays you, or it can also be what you pay yourself. But you can always adjust it and change it as you grow and scale and go along on your journey. So build up your professional skill set and don't be afraid to continue to do that thing for someone else until you feel like you're at the place where the market will pay you at a higher rate. When it comes to, scaling my business, what I looked at was I started off as a freelancer doing things for other people. After I did it for a long time as a volunteer. And for me, being in a position where I could where I could offer my services, even freelance, in exchange for money was good. I got a chance to learn how to grind. I got a chance to learn how to negotiate contracts. And I think that particular skill set can serve you in any industry. You could be making candles at your home and doing it after hours, right? After you have your 9 to 5. But being in a position where you can negotiate contracts, be able to sell in bulk, be able to manage your inventory, be able to learn and talk to your customer about what they want, what they like and don't like, those lessons are invaluable. And doing it on a basis where you are taking things kind of one transaction at a time without the stress of having overhead can be a blessing. So freelancing for me helped a lot. But for someone else, it may be doing a farmer's market. It may be maybe selling a small batch of goods to a local grocery store or a local retailer, or providing a service on Saturdays outside of your regular 9 to 5. But it's not something that you have to be locked into long term. And for that could be a really, really beneficial thing when you're trying to scale your business, especially minority-owned business. The reason why I say minority-owned business especially is because a lot of times we may not have the resources to go out and have a bunch of money to fail with, you know what I'm saying, or to learn with. A lot of minorities, depending on the community you come from a place of service. I grew up in church. So we're always volunteering to do things, always doing it, to serve and benefit the kingdom of God. But, that is also a great, great place to grow your professional skill set. But coming from a place of service, sometimes on the side of business, we have a mentality that we want to give our stuff away, give our service away to help our community, to help our people. And that don't necessarily serve you when it comes to business, because business is about making money. It's not about doing what makes you happy. At the end of the day, business is also about making money. And when you can mix in impact with that, that's even better. When you can mix in purpose with that, that's even better. But if you're making money, you don't have a business. You may have a nonprofit. You may have a volunteer service, but you ain't got a business if you ain't making money. And so just remember that, especially if you come from a background of serving. But going back to the freelance thing, I was able to go from being an amateur to working in a corporate space that gave parameters around how I can perform a job and use that gift I had. And then I was also freelancing on the side, and that allowed me to learn the skill sets to negotiate and so forth. All these are stepping stones that helped me to be able to scale the business, to be able to scale my skill sets and be able to offer higher value. And so don't be afraid to freelance, try it out, work on your negotiations. You can also, it allowed me to also see who wanted what I was offering and who didn't. Sometimes they would find me and or find me through someone else and say, do you have any, call my boss and say, do you have anyone who can do X, Y, and Z? Oh, I got someone right here. Yeah, perfect. Or I could offer my services and say, hey, local cable company, I see that you're doing high school football games. I have a video skill set. Is there opportunity for me to do camera for you? Or can I do replay for you? Or whatever, right? And then, oh, it sounds great. What's your rate? How much will you charge for that? Oh, well, and we can figure that thing out from there. But that started negotiations for me being able to learn how I could offer my skill set and how valuable was it depending on who I was talking to. So freelancing was a great way to scale your business. It was how I continued to scale mine. I even still do some freelancing to today. I think after that, the next thing I would suggest for anyone in terms of scaling your business is learning what you want out of a product and what you want out of a client relationship. So we are a service. I own Coco Creative, which is a service-oriented company. We provide advertising, marketing, production services, storytelling, digital campaigns, all that for other brands, businesses, and for the government. And so when it comes to what we offer right now, we're at a place where we are looking to work with more corporations who have bigger budgets, where we can offer our services in a way that adds value to those, especially those who want to talk to specific audiences, where we can combine content and culture, right? But it didn't start off that way. That's where we are now. The reason why we started looking at more corporations to work with is because we wanted higher budgets and higher level projects that we could offer value that have more impact. But also more importantly, we wanted to work with corporations that could afford what we were offering. And a while ago I had to, and I'm still going through this transition right now of working with companies not at the level where we were, but at the level for where we're going. And when you start off and you're scaling your business, once you come from freelance to on the side, but now you're doing this thing full time, you want to make sure that you have a consistent amount of clients that will support the business that you want to have or scale to in the near future. When I first started, I was working, when I first went full time with the business, I was hopeful that I would have enough clients. I had this idea that I would freelance my way to be able to support my family, and I was making new relationships and going to places and traveling a little bit and doing some freelancing, doing some sports stuff, and it didn't work out. Your boy was broke out here. Your boy was broke. I had a brand new third baby, and wifey wasn't feeling that. And it's more than a notion. Yeah, I had a bunch of money. I had some money coming in. It was a lot to me at that time, but a lot was going out. And when you're looking to scale your business, you have to count up the costs. I grew up in church, so you got to count up the costs for the journey. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I didn't count the costs very well. I was very hopeful that things could turn around, but I did not flush out the plan that and I was kind of half going with it. So I had to make adjustments. And that was the first time I tried to go full time with the business. I ended up getting a job in a similar space to where my business is today. And that allowed me to still cultivate my skill set. It allowed me to, for one, have consistent income coming in, and then build an even better foundation of professionalism in my space. And eventually, after being a few years on that job, switching to another one, then I launched out into the deep and went full time with the business again. And I had multiple streams of income coming in. I was teaching out of college. I think I was also going to school at the time, and I had business coming in. And I had one major client that really supported a lot of what we did. But there was a better plan at that point, and we continued to scale. So you must have a plan. You must have clients to support the business for where it is at that stage, right? Different wages for different stages, like I was saying. And so we look at building up your skill set. When you skip from it being a hobby to being even in the amateur status, you want to try it out in different markets. And that can be through freelance work. That can be through, taking your product and trying it with your target customer base in different areas. If you're selling goods, farmers markets, small retail, friends and family. But you don't want to launch out there into the deep. And that's how you want to launch. You want to really, really focus on building a good customer base and building your skill set to be the best you can be, right? So after that, once you get to a certain place, then you go out and you do your business, whether it's full-time, whether it's more intentional part-time. Once you have a good base, then that gives you a nice launching pad to then be able to scale to the next level. And just know, in business, the levels are infinite. Right? I think the space that we're talking about is really when you're trying to get consistent income, consistent 5 figures, maybe low 5 figures, right? Annually or monthly. And then you start to scale to get to maybe a consistent, 5 to 10,000 a month. Then you get maybe a consistent 20 or 30,000 a month. And what that muscle memory feels like at one level can be one thing, and it feels different at a different level, right? Money has energy. And so as you're doing work with customers, or you're selling goods or selling services, you will eventually begin to adjust your pricing according to the market. So that's the next tip. Adjusting your pricing according to the market for where you want to be. is very key. Because if you're starting off by selling certain products just off of what you know, you may just be making money off the hustle, but your prices may be too low. So you want to pay attention to what other people are doing in your market. Your market could be a local, regional one. Your market could be one that's similar in an e-commerce space to other people doing similar things. But you want to make sure that you are always evaluating your pricing for your goods or your services. And then what you charge on one platform may not be the same thing you charge on to another client. I met someone one time who was a grant writer. This wonderful black woman was amazing. She brought into a seminar. And someone asked her, how do you dictate your pricing? She said, look, when I wake up in the morning, whatever I feel like charging that day is what I charge. I'm like, go ahead, sister. But it was an interesting notion. I'm like, man, why wouldn't you charge anything consistent? She's dealing with different level clients all the time. I'm pretty sure she has a base, but she also understands her value and her worth. She's not going to charge a large nonprofit who has funds the same amount of money for a $10 million grant as a city, right? Or as a smaller nonprofit. So I think she said that jokingly, but I think the point I got is she's always examining her prices and she's always willing to adjust. And so I think as a business, it's very, very important and key to make sure that you are always examining your prices and always be willing to adjust. For us, as I wrap it up here, a couple of things that we did I started off with what I could afford with one person that I thought had a key skill set. We use interns to help us grow our business. But just remember, when you hire an intern, that intern, they need attention to grow their skill set. And so some people like the idea of having an intern because it can save them more money. Yeah, it can, maybe. But at the same time, you want to also remember that that intern is looking for mentorship and professional development. And so you have to be able to give them attention, and they are still growing, so they need grace to be able to grow in the skill set you're hiring them for, even though they can do some things for you. But starting off, we had quite a few interns helping us with some great things, and we've had great interns down through the years. One thing I've learned is an intern is going to give you internship level output, right? It's hard you cannot expect someone who is a featherweight or a welterweight to fight at a heavyweight level because their body's just not made for that. They don't have the muscle memory. They don't have the skills to do that, right? Even they may get in a couple good punches and like, man, that was good. They can only give you their best at the level where they're at. So I think it's good to manage expectations as you're starting to scale your team, but do what you can afford at that time. Do what you can afford at that time. We hired an admin on our team. Her name is Tia, and she is incredible. She had no experience in the creative space working for an agency, but she had a lot of experience being professional and helping people stay organized. And I recognized that, and then she was also so very pleasant and great to work with. I asked her to help me on the team here. And identifying talent that complements your skill sets, I think, is also really good. But I started off with just her. And then I also brought on our first full-time contractor, which was my boy Chase. He used to intern for me, but Chase is incredible. And he was my first full-time person. So it was just the three of us doing things. Tia was part-time, Chase was full-time, but I grew to that place and I was really, really doing everything I could to make sure I could afford them. And then we just went from faith to faith and experience to experience. And so that's kind of how things started off. And I think as we go along and talk through this series, I'll give you more game and more examples of how you can scale your business. We'll put out more content on social media as well with different examples and different things all around game. How I found more opportunities, how I found great networking opportunities, how I found contracting opportunities. All that stuff we'll go over as we go along. So feel free to subscribe if this is a podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe to our podcast. comment, rate, review it, all that good stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, definitely subscribe to our channel. And yeah, we'll be in good touch. You know, if you found some value, if it's something you agree with or disagree with, you know, put it in the chat, and we'll have a conversation online about it. So until next time, appreciate you. Deuces.